Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. On behalf of the Life Science Investor Forum and our co-host, Zach Small Cap Research, we're very pleased you joined us for our quarterly conference. Our next presentation is from Envoy Medical. Please note, you may submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings by clicking Book Meeting in the top toolbar. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome our next presenter. He's Brent Lucas, Chief Executive Officer of Envoy Medical, which trades on NASDAQ under the symbol COCH. Welcome, Brent.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Well, as mentioned, my name is Brent Lucas. I am the CEO of Envoy Medical. Our ticker is COCH on NASDAQ, and I'm here to talk about Envoy Medical, which I believe is one of the more undervalued companies right now. Obviously biased, but we are a diamond in the rough, and I'm excited for you to get to know us. We obviously have forward-looking statements. This is a presentation that's available on our investor page at envoymedical.com. If you'd like more information, you're welcome to go there and download it. So at the end of the day, Envoy Medical is an innovative hearing healthcare company that has two breakthrough devices. The first is Esteem, which is a fully implanted active middle ear implant, FDA approved, still the only one of its kind on the market in the US, but really on the market in the world. And then you also have the fully implanted cochlear implant, which is the Acclaim. That's an investigational device that we are currently working on in FDA trials and extremely excited about because we believe that will change the complexion of the hearing implant industry going forward. At the end of the day, our devices are different in that we use the ear to pick up sound. We do not use a microphone. We use the ear to pick up sound. So we are naturally picking up sound with your external ear, not using a microphone that you see so often with every other device. So that really separates us from the others. Both of our products are also fully implanted, which provides a lot of benefits that we'll talk about. We have a lot of patents and more coming. We have 35 issued, 13 in process, and even more being drafted. So we're very aggressive in the patent portfolio and intellectual property in general. I'd like to highlight one of our largest shareholders, Mr. Glenn Taylor, who's the chairman emeritus, has been one of our largest supporters over the years and has about $150 million into this company. And there's others, such as my family and others, who have been around this company for a long time and are really going to make sure we pull through. And then also want to highlight that we are an American-based hearing implant company, and we're currently the only American-owned and operated, American-listed cochlear implant company. So we are different in that we are here, we're manufacturing here, and we intend to stay here. To understand Envoy, you need to understand a little bit of the science about how you hear. And I'm not going to go too far here since we have a little bit of time, and please schedule a one-on-one or follow up with us, and I'd be happy to go into more detail. But at the end of the day, most of you know that we have this outer ear that picks up sound, funnels it down our ear canal to our eardrum. But what you may not know is on the other side of that eardrum, you have three tiny bones that help carry that vibration to what's called the cochlea. The cochlea is really the business end of your hearing organ. And as the signal gets there, it then sends off to your brain. So to understand why we are so unique and so different, you have to understand that because we are going to leverage that anatomy, not bypass it completely, like so many other companies. Traditional cochlear implants, for those who are not aware, so these are competitive, the competitors' products that have been on the market for decades. These products are partially implanted and partially external. And as you can see from this photo, they're very visible, and they're also not very conducive to a regular lifestyle. So these can fall off easily, they can be broken easily, they can be damaged by water, but at the end of the day, they're very visible, and they're not conducive to sort of an everyday living environment, in my opinion. So traditional cochlear implants have the external component that picks up the sound through microphone, and then is connected to an internal component via a magnet that then sends that signal to the cochlea. That cochlea is, or that electrode array is delivering an electric signal to the cochlea that then is picked up and sent to the brain. What is not being done with these devices is they are not using the ear. They are not using the outer ear to pick up the sound. In fact, the only thing that these devices are using the outer ear for is basically to hang that device off the back of the ear, just like a Christmas tree. They're not using the ear to pick up sound. We do the opposite. We very much leverage that ear because that's, at the end of the day, that's sort of nature's microphone, and we believe there's a lot of benefits to that. So these devices work and have for quite some time. Cochlear implant's an established therapy. It is not a brand new idea. This is an established therapy that works quite well. But what has not moved very far in the last 30 years is these devices and their form factor has not changed basically at all in 20, 30 years. So what Envoy is trying to do is come out with a better mousetrap. And our better mousetrap for cochlear implants is a fully implanted solution, A, and one that uses your ear to pick up sound as B. We also have a long battery life because we put the battery in the chest. So we believe we've built a better device for a lot of different reasons. And we're very excited to be studying that in a clinical trial and hopefully proceed towards FDA approval. So we've taken what is a very obvious external, bulky external device that everyone sees, and we've taken it and we've put it internally. Like so many other medical devices out there, pacemakers, sleep apnea devices, that is, at the end of the day, that is what Envoy is really leapfrogging people by doing, is taking an external and making it internal, just like so many other devices. So just to kind of go over the high level, what does the technology look like? It is, as I mentioned, it has a battery pack in the chest. That is so we can have a very long battery life. The patients can now have 4 to 5 days on one charge, which is above what they get with traditional cochlear implants, where sometimes they only last a few hours for some of the older technologies to maybe a day. So with our device, they'll have multiple days of battery charge, and we believe we can optimize that so it's a week or maybe even longer than a week as we go and make the technology better. We also have a data power lead that connects the battery pack to the processor. And then the processor is kind of where the business happens, where you take the signal from the sensor and you create a stimulation strategy, and then the electrode array goes into the cochlea. So again, all of this is internal. I know it's very difficult with a company that has fully implanted devices. It's very difficult to sort of visualize that because it's implanted and you can't see it. But in our animation here, you can see where it may be, but I want to just re-emphasize that all of this is fully implanted. There is nothing on the outside of your body whatsoever, which allows it to be fully implanted, completely waterproof, something you do not have to take off during the day, which is going to be a very marked leap in the technology and usability for patients. We are currently in pivotal trials for this. So we've done 10 patients with this at Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic, a couple of private practices around the country. So we're in 7 sites. We've done 10 patients, and we will now be going, hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be starting our second phase of that, which is going into 46 patients for a total of 56. And we hope to be starting that by the end of the year. And again, why are we different from everything else? Our device uses the natural ear to pick up sound. There is no other product that I'm aware of that has that ability. We are the only ones that use the ear to pick up sound, the only ones that's leveraging the ear basically as the microphone. We do not rely on artificial microphones on the outside of the head. And because we use the ear, you can actually use it. So if I were wearing an AirPod right now, I could wear an AirPod on top of my cochlear implant if I was a cochlear implant patient. You can't do that with anything else. So this really allows an ecosystem of products that you cannot work with other technologies. And that's why we're very, very excited about the Acclaim and where it may go in the future. Again, it's discreet, which is obviously a huge important factor for many patients, completely implanted. So some people don't care to tell the world that they have a disability such as hearing loss, but there are a lot of people who do. And before, they didn't have an option. They had to make it public to the world that they have a disability as hearing loss and significant hearing loss. You do not have to do that with our device because it's fully implanted. We believe it's dependable because it allows for 24/7 hearing. A rather obvious fact is those of us with quote unquote normal hearing are allowed to hear at night. But for a traditional cochlear implant patient, they have to take that external thing off at night, or it'll fall off at night. So they can't hear. I actually talked to an executive who's very involved in the cochlear implant world, who admitted to me that she feels very insecure in a hotel because she can't hear at night. Well, with a fully implanted device where it's 24/7, you could hear at night. And this is going to provide a level of safety and benefit that patients have not yet had for cochlear implants. We're very, very excited about it. And we believe we've built a device that's very easy to use. And we hope that the data will come out of our clinical trial to suggest that this is easier for patients to use. They don't have to worry about putting it on every morning or taking it off when they're around water. They don't have to worry about changing batteries every day or recharging the battery every day. And oh, by the way, they don't have to worry about it falling off and breaking on the cement because it got knocked off and then have to pay $8,000 to $10,000 to replace it. So we really believe we've built a device here that patients are going to want, not only because it's fully implanted and cutting edge, but also just because it's more conducive to their lifestyles. Part of Envoy's history and part of why we're very confident with where we are with the Acclaim sensor is because we first had a product called the Esteem. The Esteem had a sensor that sits on the incus and has been around for quite some time, has been FDA approved since 2010. And I believe it's important to point that out because we have now 15 to 20 years of clinical experience with our sensor. This is not a science project. We did not just make this and we're hoping it works. We know that these sensors are capable of picking up sound effectively off of the incus bone and working with the hearing implant. We're capable of manufacturing it. We're capable of getting such a thing through FDA approval process. And the Esteem is our proof in that statement. We also are very positive or very bullish on the future of the Esteem because this is a wonderful breakthrough technology in itself. Currently not covered by insurance. The Esteem is not. By the way, the Acclaim should be covered by insurance because it's a cochlear implant and cochlear implants are covered by insurance. But the Esteem, we still need to work out some kinks with the reimbursement. I believe that once or if we are capable of doing that, we could have a very strong opportunity to have two product lines that are incredibly powerful. Again, the Esteem, just a close-up of kind of how it's positioned in the middle ear. And I said it was important to know where those bones are because we leverage the vibrations of those bones. And here's an example of how we do that. Again, I don't want to waste too much time in this presentation going into the science, but I'm happy to have a one-on-one call or follow up with me directly and we can discuss. Hearing loss for a lot of people is something that we know about because of our grandparents or we came across somebody in work who has a level of hearing loss, but we don't really understand it. And hearing loss there's about 40 million people in the United States with significant hearing loss of some form. Of those 40 million, they can be broken down into different levels. And this is just to kind of give you a ballpark of where those people are. So normal hearing would be on the top, complete deafness is on the bottom, and then frequency goes from left to right on the screen. But as you can see, the Acclaim cochlear implant is focused on severe to profound hearing loss. Now, I would draw your attention to the reality that once you are in that category of hearing loss, you do not really have other options. Hearing aids are no longer doing enough for you. You will hear patients say, my hearing aid, I can hear that there's some noise, but I can't understand anything. And that's because hearing aids are no longer doing enough for those patients. They need a cochlear implant. And at that point, they've only had these big, bulky external cochlear implants, which work in an audiologist booth or in the office, but they're not very conducive to the patient's lifestyle because they have those bulky externals. They need to be taken off at night. They can't be worn all day long. But so the Acclaim really fits now into that solution that can be with the patient all day, every day. And I believe it's really going to disrupt the multi-billion-dollar cochlear implant market. And also the Esteem, once we get that covered by insurance or get some breakthroughs on the insurance side of things, it also covers a large spectrum. So Envoy Medical is an innovative hearing healthcare company that now can provide, once we get both products approved, can provide a solution to people who are no longer treated well by hearing aids. And that is a very large population and a medical need that needs to be met. And Envoy Medical is happy to meet it. Now, going back to just the cochlear implant market, because we want to focus just on that because there's hard numbers to point to there. There's about 2.8 million adults in the United States who could benefit from a cochlear implant. So these are people who would be considered cochlear implant candidates in a clinic. There's about 2.8 million adults. Of that number, only about 5 to 8% have actually gotten a cochlear implant. So again, these devices have been around for decades, and they work. They work quite well. So the question is, why? Why is the penetration rate so pathetically low if they work and they're an effective solution? Our very simple thesis is, well, those bulky externals are pretty hard for people to get over. That is a mental barrier for so many people. They are just not proceeding. And I think you're going to see that if Envoy Medical comes out with its fully implanted cochlear implant and gets approval, you are going to see people deciding, listen, if you have a choice, I know I need a cochlear implant. I can either do nothing, I can get one that has a big bulky external, or I can get a completely invisible, fully implanted solution that I can wear all day, every day. You're going to probably go to the one that's fully implanted, invisible, and with you all day, every day, that has very long battery life. We just believe that we've built a better mousetrap, and we think people are going to move in that direction. Now, if you were to take 2.8 million, multiply it by 30,000, which is a suggested ASP, I don't know what our ASP will definitely be, but just for the purposes of modeling, you have about an $84 billion total addressable market, just in the United States, just for one ear for adults. So you can see that this can become a much larger, much bigger opportunity if we execute and we do things well. On the other side of the spectrum, however, I would point to, we do not need to go after all of the patients. Envoy Medical only needs about 1,000 to 2,000 implants in our first couple of years to become a very significant company in this industry. There's about 55,000 cochlear implants that are sold annually right now. And to get just a little bit of that market share, because we are such a efficient company with lower overhead and not a lot of extraneous expenses, we can quickly become a self-sufficient business and a major player in the market. So we do not need to capture the entire market. We only need a few percentage points. Really quickly, just to touch on the competitive landscape for those who are not aware, Cochlear, based in Australia, about 65% of the market. They're on the ASX, COH, about a $12 billion market cap in US dollars. So you can see the people in this industry are treated very well, very healthy multiples, very high gross margins. This is a good industry to be in, and you do not need to sell a tremendous amount of devices to have a very good business. Advanced Bionics is owned by Sonova, and MED-EL is a privately held company. We do know that there are a couple of other projects being worked on by Cochlear and MED-EL that they call the TICI, or the totally implanted cochlear implant. We know that, or we believe we are ahead of them in terms of the timeline, especially here in the United States. We are the only ones that I'm aware of that are in an FDA trial, but way more importantly, we are the only ones that have a fully implanted sensor that sits on the incus bone. The other two companies are currently using subdermal microphones, and the subdermal microphone, I believe, is a design mistake that they're going to regret later. Subdermal microphones pick up body noises, they have other issues, and then also they've put a small battery in the head versus the chest, which is going to mean there's going to have to be a regular cadence of recharging. So I believe, even if the other companies come out with a version, we already have the better mousetrap. We already picked the better architecture. We already made the better design, and we've patented as much as we can around it, and we'll continue to do so. So I believe we're in a very, very strong position. Timeline to commercialization, we are, as I said, in pivotal studies right now. We believe we're going to have several events in the next couple of months that are going to start to indicate even better news, hopefully, and then work towards commercialization in the 2027, late 2027 or very early 2028. There's a couple of regulatory hurdles there that mess with that timeline, whether we're a panel track or just go straight through review. And again, happy to talk more about those details, but that's why we have the 2027 or 2028. Really quickly want to touch on what we would do commercially. So life science investors, biotech investors, drug investors are going to know sometimes it's great, the technology, but boy, you got to spend a bunch of money to commercialize this product. That's not the case for us. We are, cochlear implants is a relatively small industry, and we only need a little bit. So we are going to target 30 to 35 sites already selected in my head. And we are going to go after them. Those 30 to 35 sites represent approximately 15% of the cochlear implants sold every year. So if you get to a point where you can target and go deep with those sites, you can be very efficient with overhead. So we'll have 5 people supporting surgery, 5 people supporting audiologists, and really just going after those sites in the US. Again, there's opportunities to grow internationally, and obviously we'll have a plan for that. But we are going to make sure that we knock it out of the park here in the United States, that we take market share here, and then from there we will grow. We're not going to try to be all things to all people right off the bat. Pivotal study sites, this is just a highlight of the sites we are working with. We're working with some of the best surgeons, and we are going to then build off of these surgeons as we go. So these surgeons will be the ones that help us train other surgeons. Some of these have fellowship and residency programs, so we'll be able to grow from there. And again, not to belabor the point too much, but I think there's a path here where it's very important to understand that when we get commercial, we do not need to be selling tens or hundreds of thousands of devices. We really only need a couple of thousands of devices to be a wildly successful company, and that can happen extremely quickly after FDA approval if we do things correctly. And here's a little bit of kind of what we're thinking about, very sort of high level, but we only need to get 4 to 5% of the market share to get about 2,200 devices a year. And at that rate, we believe we can be a company that's very successful. So these are just kind of some ideas around it, but we're really trying to point out here, look, this is not a company where I'm going to be coming to investors closer to FDA approval and say, oh my gosh, I need to raise $100 million to create a sales force and to have distribution network. No, we already essentially have the distribution network in place. We know the sites we're going to work with, and we just need to add a couple of extra bodies, and then we'll be able to really execute on our plan. So to summarize, I just want to give you again some of the highlights. We are a fully implanted cochlear implant company. We're the only one in the US right now. So I think it's important to think about, as we think about the geopolitical situation right now, we are an American owned and operated cochlear implant company. The other ones are foreign owned and operated. We have 2 products, both breakthrough innovative products, both fully implanted, both leveraging the sensor that nobody else has. So I believe we're in a very unique situation. We do not need to have a wildly large number of units sold every year to become successful. In fact, we only need a few thousand. Now, I will say, I think there's an opportunity to take that few thousand and make it much, much larger, and then everybody's even happier. But right now, I'm focused on how do we knock it out of the park? And to knock it out of the park, we need to execute on a daily basis to get to that point where we get to commercialization, and then we start to slowly chip away at market share, and then the snowball effect should take over, and we should be quite happy. We are in our clinical trial. We have 10 patients implanted. Those 10 patients have gone through their first month of follow-up. No serious adverse events reported, no anticipated device effects reported. The anecdotal feedback that I've gotten has been positive. And so I'm very bullish on where we're at. And we will have some events where we report on that as we go, not on the raw data, but more just sort of updating people. Like, yes, we've hit our 3-month endpoint. Now we've hit our 6-month endpoint, or sorry, not endpoint, milestone. And then we will talk about expansion of our trial into that next 46. And those are some events that should be coming up in the next, hopefully in the next 6 months. Again, Glenn Taylor is one of our largest investors. So you have smart money in this already, very smart money with very deep pockets. We have an excellent board. Our board is steeped in medical device experience. I'm very, very humbled and thrilled to have those people with me. And again, American owned and operated. So with that, here's some of our contact details. I will tell you, you can go to envoymedical.com. That's our website. There's a lot more information there. My email, personal email, if you want to email me directly, is blucas@envoymedical.com. You can also reach out to Phil at KCSA. He's our IR representative, and he can set up meetings with you if we can't do it here. So let me quickly start to answer some of these questions, which I will be reading. Is it an outpatient or inpatient procedure? So it is an outpatient procedure. All cochlear implants go in for the surgery, and they all go home at night. The only time any of those patients would stay is if there is a complication with general anesthetic, but that's going to be similar between the devices. It's really not ours or not. What is the difference between a claim and a STEAM? Well, a claim is a cochlear implant. A STEAM is a middle ear implant. And at the end of the day, there's 2 big differences. Candidacy. So the esteem is for a lesser degree of hearing loss, if you will, and the acclaim is for significant to profound hearing loss. And then the mode of operation. So a cochlear implant electrically stimulates the cochlea, where the Esteem, our middle ear implant, directly vibrates the cochlea via the stapes. So it's a little bit different candidacy and a little bit different mode of operation. Does Medicare cover cochlear implants? Yes. Medicare covers cochlear implants. In fact, there's an NCD, for those who are aware, National Coverage Determination on cochlear implants, that the MACs have to cover cochlear implants. So they are covered by public and private company insurance, and there is no reason to believe that our Acclaim device would not fall in that category. It is a cochlear implant, and so we are very excited about that. When do your patents start to expire? So some patents will start to expire, obviously. I mean, some of our foundational patents from our first device have expired. But we have just, and if you follow us, please do, our press releases, you'll see that we have, over the last 5 years, really started to get more patents around the fully implanted cochlear implant. So we have a variety of patents around our architecture that we chose for that. So the implanted subsystem, basically the 4 pieces where you have the battery, the power lead, the sensor, and the implanted component. And we continue to patent around that. And now we're going in more into the details of, okay, what about some of the filtering strategies? What about some of the ideas for the future? How about pediatrics? What are you going to do for pediatrics? How are you going to be able to do other things? So we've started to patent around that, and we will be pretty aggressive in that space. On the other side of the coin, I'm not terribly worried about our infringing on other people's patents, because cochlear implants, like I said, have been around for 20 or 30 years. So cochlear electrode arrays, for example, are not a novel theory. So we're able to make a cochlear electrode array without much issue. The other thing I would point out there, patents are one thing, sure, and they're great. But the biggest barrier to entry is really your FDA regulatory approval. That is the massive barrier to entry for anybody that wants to come after this. So they will have to go through the process. And again, I point back to what I said about Esteem. The sensor of our device has been in patients for 15 to 20 years. So this is not a science experiment. We know that that sensor has been around and can be manufactured to be in humans for 15 to 20 years and it's a robust device. So that, I believe, is actually a better thing. A larger barrier to entry for anybody that wants to come after us is that FDA process, that regulatory approval process. Why do I believe Envoy is undervalued, and what are the catalysts for revaluation? Well, our current market cap today, if you wanted to build our fully implanted, let's just take replacement costs. If you wanted to build what we've built, it would not be for $35 million. I'll tell you that. So just look at our total capital in over the years, how we've gotten here. If somebody wanted to build a cochlear implant, they would have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to get there. I also believe that if you look at our competition, let's take Cochlear in Australia, for example. If you look at them and where they're at and where we could be if we just take a little bit of their market share, it would suggest that we're incredibly undervalued. And so what are some of the catalysts, which is the other part of that question? Some of the other catalysts are how we go through this clinical trial. So we talked about our first 10 patients doing quite well after the first month of follow-up, or that's been the report from the sites that, yeah, this is going well. Another catalyst will be when we get expansion later this year, and it could be in the fall, it could be in the winter, of when we go from that 10 to the next 46. That should be a big moment. What about Esteem? If Esteem suddenly gets a crack in the reimbursement dam, that could be a massive catalytic moment. Then as we go through that trial, it's really not a technology risk anymore. It's not a science experiment, like I said. We've really come to a point now where we are just executing on the trial, and all signs so far look very good. And if you look at the market and where the market is headed in hearing implants, Envoy is incredibly well positioned to take some of that over. So I'm very, very bullish, and I believe we're absolutely in a great situation, and hopefully more people will wake up and realize that, and those who jump on the train now will be rewarded handsomely. At least that's my hope. So with that, I believe my time's up. I want to thank everybody for listening, and I hope you will follow Envoy. Please send us questions, and I would love to talk to anybody interested in a one-on-one meeting. So thank you very much.